The aliens are preparing to make the jump into light speed, and in doing so, they are entering their hibernation pods, and so the ship is on low power setting. It's in low power mode, and you need to power this thing up so you can operate the stuff and get off the ship, right? Of course. So one of the things we're going to be doing is making a puzzle where you have to figure out which fuel cores are full and which ones are empty, and you got to replace the empty ones with full ones. We are building our reactor sections today. There'll be 2 of these inside our spaceship. You got to have 2 because it's got 2 engines. This is a propellant storage canister for a 155 millimeter howitzer artillery piece. And one of the cool things about it is, now I've painted this already. I did just a chrome spray paint with a candy apple finish over that to give it this cool look, but it's got this neat retainer device, so that's a good starting point. This is a storage container for a mortar round. The diameter of this thing is a little bit too small for our howitzer, so in order to make this thing guide properly through the center and look all sci-fi and perfect and cool and stuff like that, we are machining these rings, for lack of a better term. And so there'll be a stack of these. They'll be riveted together to give them kind of another, again, a tech look. This whole thing will get painted out. And hey, look, there's a recess that we can embed something in to make this do something. So we have a signal spot. And so we can just wire up a signal into the other piece. Now, all of this will be set into a pedestal so that it doesn't move, so that, and it gives it more of a tech look. I mean, really, this thing, the lid is really cool, but this thing is just sort of a fancy tube. We want it to be a little bit more than that, so we're going to make some sort of a sci-fi pedestal that these things go into, and dress the whole thing out. So we'll show you that as we go. This is one of our trim rings that we've made. I took a bunch of measurements off this thing, Matt modeled it up, and cut these out of 2 layers of Sintra, which is PVC, on the CNC machine, and we're going to be attaching those momentarily. A little glue technique that we're going to show you. But first, we're going to use pop rivets to put these guys together. So I've got a bunch of pop rivets sticking out of this thing right now. And these are special washers that work with the pop rivets because Sintra is too soft simply to use a pop rivet. I'm going to demonstrate that on this other camera now and see if we can get a good tight shot of how a pop rivet actually works. So if you look at the way there's a little ball on the end of a stem. I've got the tool holding the stem down here, and the ball will pull into this sleeve and make the sleeve expand. It'll get wider, and that is the fastener on this side. The other side has a little washer of its own. So there you can see it crushing in. So we're going to do that 8 million more times, and we'll have a full set of rings for all of our reactor tubes, our reactor cores. Okay, our fuel cores, the rings are in place. We had to hammer these guys in place. They're tight for a reason. The reason is that we're going to use capillary action to do a solvent weld. A solvent weld is where you use this is PVC as well as this. So both these things are PVC. We're going to use solvent for PVC to melt between the two and have them fuse into one piece of plastic. And that you can't fill a gap that way. Also, we're using capillary action to draw the solvent in. If there's a big gap, capillary action doesn't work so well. We're going to use the primer for PVC, which is also a solvent for PVC. That'll be our glue. And we're going to use this little PET bottle that has a needle in it. It's kind of stabby dangerous, so don't do that ever. I'm going to suspend a little droplet from the end of my needle, and then I'm going to touch it to the joint, and you can see it disappear into the joint. That is a good demonstration of capillary action. This is a roll of aluminum foil. Actually, it's not. This is duplicolor chrome, which has a nice aluminum finish. There is no such thing as chrome spray paint. Give it up, guys. Duplicolor makes a decent what comes out is aluminum and also candy colors. By the way, fun fact, go to your local grocery store and replace all the rolls of aluminum foil with this stuff. This is just a painted PVC pipe.
What?
Then watch the fun happen.
How would that? You have to follow them home.
So I did this just as a test. This is our reactor core having been painted. In fact, I'll get a close-up of the trim ring for you. And look, there's the insert shot now. And then I did a chrome finish on the cap and then put a purple candy over the top of it. So we have a nice metallic finish. This will probably be cemented shut. There's not going to be anything inside of this. We'd thought about making this heavy. The problem with doing that is that if it gets dropped, its weight is going to contribute to how much damage this thing takes. So we're going to leave it fairly lightweight. These splines that are in the tube make it look not PVC-ish. That's a lot of the features, a lot of the little sculptural details on this thing are what makes it look so cool and sci-fi-ish and stuff. So when we design something like this, we're going to put a couple things together so that no element is simply just a human recognizable thing. That's kind of how spaceships are made. That's how you do it in a sci-fi movie. That's how the industry does it. So we're going to talk about, well, we have this guy. So we've got our cool paint job on him. And we've got a center spot here with an RFID chip embedded in it. The tube that this has to fit into, we'll put an RFID reader in there so that these are all identifiable. But just that by itself is not enough. We're going to make a reactor tank that goes with this feeding device, so that there's more to it. For this, we're going to use something called an IBC bulk container or an IBC tote, a 275-gallon tote, which looks like this. So that's what that looks like. And you can buy these things reconditioned online, or you can find dealers that just sell them used. And you can get them for like $100, and it's a big piece, and it's used in lots of sci-fi stuff. And recently I've seen them in The Expanse, and I've seen them in something else. They're generally used in the cargo bay of a spaceship. But we found out something kind of interesting about them, is that if you flip it over, there's all kinds of interesting stuff involved with the pallet. So what we did was we disassembled everything and did different paint jobs on everything so that it looks more sci-fi. So this is the pallet with the parts broken down, painted, and then reassembled. These are done in aluminum. This is done in candy red. This is gunmetal, candy purple. Now, the tank itself, you can see a little bit of it on the front edge, and here's an insert shot. The tank will be lit, so you'll have a pulsing, let's say, blue light inside the tank. The tank's translucent, so it's going to look great doing that. These are just aesthetic things, but we're trying to take full advantage of this piece. And again, this is just an IBC tote or an IBC tank flipped over and painted in a sci-fi way.
This is a template that I cut while I was making the other pieces for the RFID holder sled thing. Drops into there and marked out my holes. I have just gone through with increasingly large drill bits to drill out the holes. We're going to have bolts that come from the inside through here, and then through the podium that it's sitting on, and then through here that will go into the actual base section. So this is upside down, but that'll be on there like so. Bolts coming through, and we have access holes here and here for the wires for our RFID readers, and those will also transfer through to the bigger base.
Pedestal construction is almost done. Matt's working on the electronics right now. In order to get this whole thing assembled, Preston has been using a magnet to kind of fish the bolts through the holes. So this is bolted through everything, and that way it's strong and the public proof, or as the public proof as it can be made. Matt's working on the RFIDs right now, and those will slip down inside, and every one of our cylinders and canisters and everything else has an RFID embedded in it, so there's the code.
Now on our reactor core puzzle, in order to complete it, we're just going to use RFID like so. Something we learned doing the pyramids is that not all RFIDs are created equal. We have the blue off brand here and the red Sunfounder brand. And we learned doing the pyramid that these guys have nearly double the read range as the blue ones. So after getting a whole big pile of these and then soldering up all of the little headers on them, to go into the pyramid, we realized that we were just a fraction of an inch beyond the read range. So the red ones, though a little more expensive, do have a better read range. This is going to be the RFID sled. This is the RFID reader holder for our reactor cores. And just because we have run into instances before where we're just kind of barely on that threshold, in the cut path, I went and put a little slot there that will receive those little bitty solder points to get this as flat as possible up in there, which will get it as close to the fuel rod as possible to do a read.
Show that by itself.
There it is without the rest of the thing. Well, if there's a reactor leak, you probably shouldn't be warming your hands on it.
Yeah, but it's cold fusion. This is really not working.
Oh. So why am I wearing gloves?
Don't really know. So what we've got right now is spent fuel core, and you have to figure out which fuel core goes into the type A reactor and which fuel core goes into the type B reactor, be it a type A or a type 2 core. It's pretty simple. This is just an RFID thing. But it's kind of amazing what you can do with found objects.
This time we're doing safety.
I'm going to tickle you again. Remember what happened last time?
Don't make it weird.
This light will actually pulse in the actual game. We haven't hooked it up that way. So this is just temporary for camera, just so you can have some idea of what it's going to look like. And there will be sound effects, so it goes wah, 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 and stuff like that to annoy the hell out of you. Actually, it'll be a very slow, light wah, wah, wah. Or a heavier, yeah. Wah. So I'll do this really fast. These are just interesting looking PVC 2-inch fittings. We got some vinyl braided hose that comes out of this guy and goes into fittings that are built into the pedestal. The pedestal is the element that ties everything together. That's what makes this guy communicate with this guy visually and sort of make sense to you. But there are just double hoses, our mount, and that's about it. We've got more spaceship stuff coming, so if you want to see it, subscribe and push the little bell. Ring the bell next to the subscribe thing, and that way you'll be notified and you'll know when the videos come out. And we'll just keep making them for you. And
I have epilepsy now.